Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. So, Stranger Things, you came in late. You were late to the party. What was it like learning you would be part of this amazing phenomenon?
Um, Gosh, there's so much to that. First of all, I was obviously elated, shocked, and very, very, very overjoyed. And then came this sort of realization of the fact that I was feeling this great duty of care, I think, to the job. I think that came from multiple places. I think that came from, the show's success, and all the amazing work that the performers and the crew had put into it, but also like with Matt and Ross Stuffer as well, our sort of, fearless leaders, as it were. Um, it was that thing of me being like, they are so smart, they have so much heart, and they have so much reference. It's now my duty to pick that apart, to really get into it, and to do what I can do to best serve this story.
Yeah, what's great about the series, one of the things is like, even when Max came on, I was like, well, come on, let's not, this is a good recipe. Let's not add ingredients. And then you're added to the story. Well, we didn't know much about you, but we're still learning about you and your characters or character. Um, but it only makes it better. And I'm like, that's not true with a lot of things. There's a lot of series that the jump the shark moment is like, where they brought in so and so, but not here. And it's pretty fantastic to get to join, but get to join in such a part that you're forever part of the lore, but also going to be a fond part of that lore.
That's really kind. Yeah, I think it's that thing of just the fact that they care so much, that Matt and Ross genuinely, genuinely do care, and nothing is done by accident.
The characters, 11 and Henry, they're part of this terrible program. They're victims, and obviously Vecna is not a good person. But what is your take? How do you decide to play him? Like, how what's going on in the back of your head when you're playing this character who's full of evil deeds, but there's still some humanity in there, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that for me, when I was creating both of the characters like in my head and how I was going to be approaching them, I actually started with Vecna and then went back to Henry, because I found Vecna. It would be a shame if Vecna's motivation was just, I don't know, just evil, just evil. There is no humanity there for me. So it was about this idea. I came to this realization or the understanding of this idea of like resentment being this sort of choking of love, as it were, and then tracked back to Henry, and his childhood, his experiences, at home, and then obviously, his experiences within Hawkins National Lab. And then ultimately, what we see in episode 7 of season 4 is that when he says, you and I, 11, we can make a better world, we can have freedom. And she says no, and she eventually ends up sending him into his sort of, I don't know, veiny demise, as it were. And at that point, that's where the resentment lies. So it's about holding on to some of those sort of, I don't know, less desirable human characteristics, as well as being able to bury the memory of self back in the mind, so that it can pop up, but that it's not always there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I speak to a lot of actors, and often comes up. I'm like, you play a villain. How can you connect with them? Do you like this character? And they go, I love this character. And I'm like, then explain it. And it makes sense because if you can't be part, have that one, maybe it's just the smallest part of you connecting with them. Then how can you play them? What is it that you connect with? Like, how do you find a way to still express a humanity? Is there something that you dig into mentally, or how you prepare for it?
Well, ultimately, how I feel about this character at the end of the day is I just want to give them a hug. That is genuinely what I want to do. And how do I How do I feel there? I mean, I spent a long time considering his relationships with his primary caregivers. Um, and between shooting season 4 and Stranger Things 5, I was fortunate enough to see the first Shadow, the play, in London and in New York. And it was an amazing thing for me to have a lot of the thoughts that I had been having about this character qualified and go, oh, okay, great. So I wasn't completely mental. Like the things that I've been looking at and thinking about are actually real and part of this law. And so it is just about ultimately, at the end of the day, being able to connect to the vulnerable side of whatever character it is that you're playing. You know, they're not, it comes down to that conversation of nature versus nurture. And I think actors, and particularly myself, I tend to lean into the nurture side of things more. It's where I can feel their heart a little bit more.
So we get much more Henry this season, or you as Henry this season, in a different kind of delivered in a slightly different way than we have seen in the past. How do you prepare to play? How is it different preparation to play Henry and also to play Vecna? Because of course there is the costuming, but also your voice and everything else, and your mannerisms. Everything is completely different.
You've seen the first 4 or 3?
3.
You've seen the first 3. So what's important to remember with this iteration of Henry that you are witnessing is that this is a presentation. This is not what we saw in season 4 with regards to the fact that what you were seeing in season 4 actually happened and is a real experience. This version of Henry is, what can I show this person that's in front of me that's going to help them to make them feel safe and ultimately provide me with success of my end goal? So what I did approaching that was, when I was going through season 4, I made a vast amount of mood boards for both Vecna and for Henry. Again, it's that thing of memory and experience. I also used references across various different pieces of art as well as other things. And upon approaching this iteration, what I did is I took certain core things that I knew would stay and would stick, and they started in the middle, and everything else around that became this idea of the presentation. So I leaned into, I suppose, people like Mr. Rogers this season particularly. I used a bit of Willy Wonka, and wanted that sort of like eerie, but everything's quite niceness about what's going on, and stuck those things all around my house so that they were the first things that I saw when I woke up and the last things I saw when I went to sleep as well. There was also a really interesting film that I believe Magnet released. I think it was called Alone, which was about a stalker sort of chasing this woman through the woods. And I was really interested in the idea of like a stalker within that too, this idea of this sort of deer hunter, like I've been watching you kind of element as well, and learning about you, learning about what makes you tick and what you like, so that when I can see you, I can show you everything that I know that you'll be into. And then lying about that.
A Pied Piper type.
Very much so, the Pied Piper. And actually, yes, a huge reference for me again this season, particularly the film, I believe it was early 50s, I think it was made, or mid 50s, something like that. Yeah, I mean, that final sequence where he's leading the children into the cave and that cave door opens and it's this beautifully colorful world was a massive visual reference for me approaching this character this season. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Willy Wonka reference is good because if they changed one scene in that, it could have been a horror movie.
Yeah,
It's like,
totally. And I wanted to slip things in during the shooting of this of this season. Things like what did I want to say? I wanted to say welcome everyone. You know, it's minor. You know, little moments that I just thought, well, oh, that's really fun.
of course, you have the big, the makeup and the costume in that. Do you wake up on a Vecna shooting day and go, oh damn, it's Vecna day, or
I go to bed going, oh damn. No, I don't. It takes a few days to get into it. You know, it that's what it took to get to where I needed to get to. Just building it up, particularly after playing the other version of myself. It's about tapping into that resentment and building that up and knowing that it's coming and staying in that, you know, for as long as possible. And as much as possible so that it's easily accessible when required rather than, you know, to use an English term, a kick bollock scramble to go, oh my God, I've got to grab this. And now as we're releasing this season, you know, we've been asked questions, or I've been asked questions about like, what was it like stepping back into the character? The truth is that the character never left because I knew I was having to come back. So it was always in the back of the mind. It would always be something that I was thinking about. But of course, equally at the same time, incredibly grateful to be the guy that gets to sit in the makeup chair and, you know, be applied. And I love being the first person on a film set. There's something so magical about walking onto a soundstage where nobody's there yet. And you're just the first person there and you can be like, cool, all right, today's gonna be amazing.
Is bonding when you have to wear this, this big costume, which I'm guessing is heavy and probably sweaty and smelly and all those other fun things. Is it difficult to bond with all these, like this close group of friends that have been together for all these seasons? It must be weird seeing you at the snack table, like eating, like in your costume. Vecna's over there,
just sat in an air-conditioned room. No, it's not difficult, really. And I would say that is so down to the people that are there. You know, Millie and I formed such a strong relationship from the word go on season 4 that even when I was stood in front of her and she was terrified of Vecna because she doesn't like masks, but even when those things were going on, we were still able to have those moments of levity and enjoy the process. So no, it's not hard to bond. Am I sort of one of the key central hero figures of the show? Absolutely not. But everyone's been so warm, welcoming, and inviting that when we see each other, of course, it's love.
And what is it like shooting this? I know some of it is physical and practical effects, but a lot of it has to be CGI because unless we have hell on earth, well, we kind of do, but let's not get political. Unless there's a hell on earth, what is it like? You're not on top of the costume, having to be in a world that doesn't completely exist, and having to give off these true emotions and this this energy.
Yeah, I mean, this season it's no news to people because obviously they've seen the trailer now. This season, obviously, we're seeing a sort of new version of Vecna, particularly, and within that, there's been a change and a visual aesthetic change and a more, well, not more, but a new collaborative way of working cross departments, which has been really fun. So what you're seeing this season, just in terms of the character that I'm playing, is a blend of CG and prosthetics, whereas last season was full body prosthetics across the board. And so it was nice to be able to have conversations with Michael Meher and Barry as well, and Amy Paris about what we needed to do in order to make sure that the scale and presence of Vecna was just physically in the room. Of course, there's the sort of energetic side of it as well. I'd approached season 4 and considered that I was going to be having 1.5 inches of foam latex on top of my body. I needed to make sure that whatever energetically is inside of me is penetrating that. And going into Stranger Things 5, same thing again, just making sure that that presence was there. In terms of what you're seeing on set and what you've seen in this first batch, a lot of it was there. A lot of it was actually there. Like, it was a huge scale production this season. So, you know, when I'm throwing soldiers around and people are falling from a great height and walking through a bunch of gunfire, that was all going down. That was all happening in the moment. So that really helps, I think, on a performance level. But I think for me, it was just about understanding that there was going to be a aesthetic change, but that I still needed to make sure that that sheer gnarliness of the character that I'd started in season 4 was still present.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your work. And I really enjoyed this conversation. What I took away from it actually makes me appreciate the show and your work so much more. So thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, and you appreciate that. Thank you.